Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are we doing today?
We're good. How are you?
Doing well. All right. Let's just try to get everything open and let everybody in. Let me give you guys the link to your handouts. Good morning. See what I've got here. I got some new folks on today. Happy to see you. Thanks for being here. All right. Let me let these last few people in here. All right. Good morning. Okay. What we are talking about today, so it's already happened to me a couple of times in the last 2 months. Have any of you guys had a situation where a client has called you and said, I don't really need a realtor, I just need somebody to like help me write the contract, or I already know the house I want to buy, I just need a little help, but I don't really want to hire somebody. Like I'm already starting to see that, right? If you are seeing that too, then you understand we have got to do a better job of making sure that people understand why we're needed. And so I decided to write this class today about why do I need an agent? And it's really for us as agents to help people understand why they need a realtor. And it's not a scare tactic. It's not what it's meant to be. It's meant to be as education so that we can make sure we are inserting our value constantly, but we're also making sure that people understand the role of a realtor. What is it that we do? I think if I polled 100 people and asked them, what does a realtor do? Most of them would say, oh, they help you find a house. Well, in 1999, when I got a license, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, that was probably more true because we had the books of the MLS. It wasn't online on a computer. I know that makes me sound very, very old, but I am. And we had to wait weekly for the books to be published to see what houses were available for sale. And so people did come to realtors to um, to actually find out what houses were for sale. And we were the gatekeepers of the information. We were the ones that could tell them where houses were for sale. And we were the ones that were in charge of sending listings to them to look at. But sometimes that meant they had to come into the office and look in the physical book with me, right? I know this is going to blow y'all's mind for those of you that are newer to the business or younger and maybe you just got a real estate license recently, obviously they have access to everything, a lot of things that we do now. And so I would just say to you that, we need to make sure that people understand that our role is not just helping them find the house. In most cases, in 90% of the houses that I've sold in the last, um, you know, 15 years, the clients actually found the house themselves. They were on some big third party site that rhymes with pillow, or any of those others, and they found houses themselves. And then my job actually kicked in once we went and looked at the house. And so I want people to understand that we do a whole lot more than opening doors. And that is our role as an agent as well, is to make sure that people understand what is our role, what are our responsibilities. And then more importantly than that, what value do we bring to the table? If you are of the opinion that all we do is open the door, or all we do is maybe help them write the contracts, then you don't really understand your role either as an agent, that we are doing our job to make sure that they know there's like 180 things that we do for any given moment, from the moment we meet someone until post closing. And we need to make sure that they understand what could go wrong if they don't have. So first and foremost, if you joined a little later and you didn't get the link, I'm reposting it again because sometimes the links, you don't see what's in the chat until you come into the room. You can't see what was in there beforehand. So I posted that again, which is basically a link to my my drive folder that has the handout for today, but it also has a really valuable resource for you guys. We created a template for you guys to use that is basically 30 things that could go wrong if you don't have an agent. So what I'm going to encourage you, I'm going to teach you how to use that in just a minute. So let's talk about why, the value of a realtor, first of all. And everything that I'm expressing to you all, my hope is that you're going to take this information and you're going to turn it into an educational campaign for your clients or for customers so that you begin to educate people about why we're needed. And then you're also going to begin to educate people about what solutions you put in place to avoid pitfalls. One caveat I want to explain to you, and if you don't hear me say anything else on this call, listen to this part carefully. What I don't want you to do is give all your secrets away, like telling people how to avoid the problems without you. That doesn't serve the purpose. The purpose is for them to understand your critical role and why you're needed. Just like you can do your own taxes, but are you knowledgeable enough to avoid getting hauled into the IRS for an audit, right? Is there someone that has a special skill, like an accountant, that knows what's deductible and what's not, and knows how to avoid critical errors that can keep me from getting audited? You need to understand your role as a realtor is the exact same. You need to understand that, yes, people can buy or sell a house without you, but doing so could have some dangerous implications. There are some things that could go wrong in doing that. So I want to make sure that you are hearing me say, with all the information that I'm giving you today, if you're going to do some kind of educational campaign to teach people about why they need a realtor, don't give away all your secrets or teach them how to avoid things. What you want to emphasize is, I can help you avoid these problems. But you don't have to tell them how you're going to help them avoid it, because you want them to call you and hire you so that you can show them how to avoid that. I hope that makes sense to you all and that you understand the difference of that. So first of all, the value of a realtor, number one, we have market expertise. No one has better knowledge about current trends and pricing, neighborhood insights, what's happening in neighborhoods, more than a local realtor. So if you are newer to the market, newer to the agent, and you're not really sure that this is a part you're not confident in, you can overcome this part very easily by studying the MLS every day. Logging into your MLS, checking to see what houses have come on the market, what has gone pending, what has closed, what things expired or were withdrawn. You also can see, sometimes builders will put new construction listings in there so you can see what builders have released lots and released things that we've seen. You can also check in a lot of states, rentals are in there as well, so you can see going rental rates. But the MLS is our best source of data that we are the only ones that have access to. And you have a lot of tools built into that MLS that are going to help you be a local market expert. Okay. Uh, Obviously, we can give CMAs, we can give market analyses, we can help make sure that homes are priced correctly. That's a skill set that we have that the average Joe and Mary do not have. Yes, they can go on Zillow and see what the estimate says. Yes, they can even look at some other tools that might give them computerized models. But we know that the true market value actually is based on what a buyer and a seller are willing to sell it for, and that those computerized models don't take into account some condition. They also don't take into account some upgrades that the tax records don't reflect. And so that has a big impact on our pricing strategy as well. And the only way you're going to know your true home's value is through the advice of a local realtor that is a market expert. Um, so the other thing that we bring to the table are negotiation skills. Like, again, we do this every day. We don't just sell one house a year or one house in a decade like some of our clients do. We do this every single day. So we know we are sharpening our negotiation skills back and forth with clientele and other agents every day. We're honing those skills. We know what works in the market and what doesn't. We know what sellers are willing, a lot of sellers are willing to do. We know if the market conditions warrant a buyer asking for closing costs. We know if the market conditions warrant coming in below list price. We also know whether or not there are concessions that are happening in our market. Those are things that the average buyer and seller do not know. And they're relying on us to provide them with that kind of market information so that they can best prepare their offers for success and so that they can get a win in the marketplace. But our negotiation skills are another thing that help separate us from the public. We can help negotiate contingencies and how those would work. We can consult on timing of contingencies as well as repairs. What types of repairs are needed or not needed or critical or just informational? I want to make a comment real quick on the repairs because anytime I bring this up, I want to make sure that I give my opinion about it. There are a lot of brokerages in the country that advise their agents not to advise clients about what repairs are needed or not needed. They feel like it opens them up to liability. If you think that sounds crazy, raise your hand with me. I think that sounds crazy. I think the common consumer does not know what types of repairs are customary for a seller to be responsible for. They also may not know what is necessary to be repaired or what would have to be repaired for any buyer that buys it, what types of repairs would be required for an appraiser. They are relying on us for that information. That's the value that we bring to the table. That's why they hire us to help us navigate that process. So if your broker is telling you don't take on that liability, you might want to consider a different career because now more than ever, we are required to step up and do the things that we have the knowledge to do, and our clients are dependent upon that. So if you don't want to get your hands messy, that you're afraid you're going to take on too much liability with giving opinion about what should be repaired and what shouldn't, you might want to rethink this career choice for you. They need us to tell them what kind of repairs are needed. And if you need more practice yourself, get with a mentor or a broker or a coach, or even sit down with a home inspector and ask, what are the most common repairs you see? And what are the solutions to fixing them? When I first got into real estate, I was 19 years old. I didn't know anything about how a home runs, what the maintenance is. I didn't know anything about common things that come up on inspections, but I learned quickly. And how I learned was on the job. I attended a lot of inspections. I attended a lot of classes about inspections and what to look for and how those repairs can be done. The other part is that we can also negotiate closing costs on behalf of clients. We can negotiate lots of terms. It's more than just the sales price, and that's another thing that clients don't know about. They don't know that there's at least in Tennessee, there's at least 26 different areas that we can negotiate on behalf of a buyer, whether that's a closing date, that's title, that's a warranty, if that is, things that are left behind, if that is the sales price, that is closing costs, all those things, all are terms of the contract that we are skilled at negotiating. So I definitely want to hone in on our negotiation skills. The other thing is we have access to resources that John and Mary may not have. They also don't do this every single day. So I have a network of professionals that I work with on a daily basis, that I have vetted properly already. I know who I can trust. I know who does great work. I know who's responsive. I know who gives great customer service. I know whose prices are reasonable. I've already done all that work. And I've also worked with these professionals who've demonstrated that they do a good job and that they can help solve our issue. You don't want your clients taking measures into their own hands and calling a random person that is not skilled to do the repair. They do the repair, pay for the repair, and the buyer's unhappy with the quality of the workmanship. You want to make sure that you're trusting someone that actually can do the work. The other thing is I have a network of all kinds of professionals. My database is deep of vendors. I've got contractors, inspectors, landscapers, painters, termite people, water intrusion people. I've got foundation people. I've got everybody and anybody that somebody might need that is a part of this process that can help solve the problems. Your clients do not typically have a network that big. They typically do not have those kinds of resources. So another reason you're going to want to hire a realtor or hire a professional agent is because you want access to my network of people that are going to help things go much smoother. Everybody following along with that? Are you guys awake with me this morning?
How do we do
Yeah,
that?
a little bit, maybe. All right. The other part is pricing expertise. Like again, overpricing a house or underpricing a house can lead to financial losses. When a house sits on the market too long, you start to get beat up on the price. You will start to get lower offers. You will start, buyers will start to question, well, this house has been on the market longer than average. Why, what's wrong with it? They start to question what's wrong with it. They start to make up things in their mind about what could be wrong with the house. And then you start to get lower offers. And what happens is overpricing the house, you are constantly chasing the market to catch up to it. And the only way you try to catch up is by making constant price reductions, which is ineffective. It still doesn't move the property, right? So you have to go on the market at the right price at the right time, because you will never regain the momentum that you had the first 14 days on the market. And agents know this. We know it because we see it in practice every day. If we're watching Realtor, we're watching the MLS, we can see what didn't work. Those are the properties that expired, or those are the ones that had 5 price reductions, right? So your common seller does not know about proper pricing. They just want the most money they can get, right? They want to price it at the height of the market. Even though you got to remember too that they're emotionally attached to these houses. They brought their babies home. They buried their dog in the backyard, which I know sounds awful, but it happens, right? They planted grandma's roses on the side of the house, or they planted a tree when they lost a baby and now that tree is full grown. They have emotions attached to this property. We are the non-emotional part of this that can be rational and business savvy to think about what this house is actually worth and remove and strip all the emotions that you have added to it. And a lot of the times the emotions you add to it as a seller, you think that equates to dollars, and it doesn't. So you need us to give you proper guidance and expertise on how to price properties. Right now we're in a situation where they're very demanding of us and they want all of our information, but they want to try it on their own. So I've been on a lot of listing appointments in the last 3 months where I've priced the property. I've given them advice about how to stage it, how to prep each room, how to get it ready. And guess what? They've called me and said, well, we're going to try it for sale by owner first. Thank you so much for the information. And that's going to happen to you. You're going to have to decide for yourself how much time you're willing to invest in people that have not recognized your value right at the beginning, right? And if they don't recognize your value, it means we have not done a good enough job to make sure that they know you, of course, can do it on your own. But why would you want to? This is not something you do every day. The reason they want to is because they want to save money. So if that's the case, then you need to make sure that you are explaining and expressing to people that you have the ability to actually save them money. Look at the things that they could happen if without your help, and how costly are those things. With for sale by owners, if I can show you that you actually would net more money with my help and still pay my fee, why would you want to do it on your own? Why would you want to take on the 180 things that I do from start to finish just to save yourself $30,000? Because it actually could cost you $60,000 or $75,000. I want you to think of all the iBuyers that came into the market in the last 10 years. The iBuyers that say, and they're still out there, they still exist, the people that are like, let me buy your home, let me, get an offer on your home. You don't have to take it to the market. You don't have to, no open houses. You don't have to have showings. It's convenient, right? Those iBuyers got people to sell them their homes so that they could avoid a pain point. In exchange, they actually left money on the table. And in many instances, several of these clients, so many of these clients ended up selling their house for $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 less than what their home was truly worth, in an effort to try to avoid an open house or two, or to show their house 20 times in a month, right? Is that worth it to a seller to leave $85,000 on the table when they could have gotten that $80,000 and still paid my fee, and I could have helped them avoid a lot of the problems that they had, right? And that just means that we've got to make sure that people understand that there's better out there, that you deserve better representation than what you're getting, right? We got to make sure that they understand the dangers of going it alone. And I don't mean that as a scare tactic, but I mean it as a way to prepare them and educate them about what could go wrong if you don't hire them. Everyone knows if you don't hire an accountant to do your taxes, you could get audited, right? That's scary enough that most people hire an accountant, right? All right, so everybody understands we're obviously the best ones to price the house. Sellers are very emotional. They want to add, all kinds of value that doesn't actually exist. And they want to give credit for themselves for something. For example, I had someone told me, I went on a listing appointment once, and the person told me, I've just done all these renovations. And I started asking all these questions. Okay, talk to me a little bit about what you did. Well, I planted a couple bushes out front and I painted the whole house. And when I got to the house, I looked at the paint. They used about 25-year-old paint that doesn't match anything, and there are spots everywhere. There's no value to that. The buyer's not going to pay you extra for that. And the upgrades or updates that they claim that they did were non-existent. So, again, they convince themselves of all kinds of things, but they rely on us and our professional expertise to tell them what actually is going to give them value on their home, and remove the emotional attachment. Anybody have any questions so far? Or comments? All right, moving right along. The other part is we help them protect themselves against legal issues, right? Our real estate transactions involve complex legal documents and disclosures that they are not familiar with. They don't know what these contracts say. They don't know the legal implications of the contracts. I don't know about y'all, but I think so many of y'all are from, you're probably from all over, but a lot of us are from Tennessee. In our big boom in our market, we had a lot of people come from California in the last 5 years. They're still coming from California everywhere. But we've had a lot of Californians that are so accustomed to having a 3-day right of rescission that they can just go write a contract and in 3 days change their mind and get their earnest money back. We don't have that in Tennessee. But these buyers from California don't know that. They don't know what our contracts say. They don't know what legal protections they have and which ones they don't, right? The other thing is that in the state of Tennessee, and again, it's going to differ for state, but almost all states have a disclosure requirement that a seller is required to complete a property disclosure form and provide that to a buyer prior to writing an offer on the house. How many of you sold a house where you're still waiting on the property disclosure statement from the seller and you've been under contract for 5 days? That's against the law, right? That is our responsibility to know what the law says and what the disclosures say and what protections the buyers and the sellers have per the contracts. Your buyers and sellers, Mary and Joe and Sam, the common public, does not read these documents every day. They don't know what they say. They have no idea what the legal requirements are or what the protections are that are in. That is our responsibility to be familiar with them and make sure that they know. We also have access to attorneys that can properly advise people. And a lot of sellers will say, well, I'll just hire an attorney. Okay, that's great. I've had clients that have said that before, where I represented the buyer. The seller was a for sale by owner. The seller decided he did not need realtor representation. He was just going to send the contract to his attorney. Well, the attorney that he sent his contract to is not a regular real estate attorney. And so he ended up paying $2,800 for the legal services to just review his contract. Nothing else. It was not even the closing. It was $2,800 to review the contract. That's dumb. A title attorney or a regular attorney will pay $400 for the whole service or $500 for the whole service. But in an effort to save money, they ended up spending $2,800 just to have the contract reviewed. So again, we're going to be able to provide them legal protections and help them navigate the legal complications of these contracts and disclosures seamlessly and flawlessly. Okay. The other thing is about disclosures, like again, without the advice of an agent, do the sellers know what things they're required to disclose and which things they're not? Are buyers then subject to not getting disclosures, things that weren't disclosed? And what are the legalities of that? And now that means you might have legal troubles on your hand because something wasn't disclosed. Our jobs as agents is to help our buyers do due diligence. And when we enter into an agency agreement with a client, they are relying on us to help them do that due diligence, which means reviewing disclosures and investigating things that we would normally have common knowledge to know to look for. The common buyer does not know. I got sent an article today from an agent friend of mine that talks about the different cracks that you see in the houses, whether something is a vertical crack, a horizontal crack, or a step stair crack. It's an article by the National Association of Realtors that they put out. But the bottom line is that if you're not used to seeing houses and you don't come across these cracks all the time, and you haven't ever had talks with a structural engineer, and you've never read an article like this, if you are just the common Joe and Sam and Mike and whoever customer, do you know what these cracks mean and what that could mean for the type of house that you're buying? Your home inspector is just going to tell you it needs further evaluation. Does the common buyer know what that means and who to call? Do they know if the horizontal crack is bad or a vertical crack is bad? Yes, Google can answer a lot of questions, but it doesn't mean they have the expertise that they would need. Make sense? I hope so. Expansive market exposure. This is what we do. We get paid to market the crap out of our listings and to make sure that every eyeball possible can see which houses are for sale. We have a wider audience than for sale by owners. We also have a larger marketing reach because of our networking, because of the access to the MLS, plus of our marketing strategies, sponsored ads. We have the ability to reach a lot more people than the average consumer does. So an agent, someone is going to hire me because of my marketing plan, because of my extensive marketing experience, because I know what it takes to get people through the front door of the house, right? For sale by owners don't do that every day. They may not even know, right? Their only exposure for sale by owner might be a limited listing company that just puts it in the MLS. I don't know how many of you have worked with those companies, but I actually was helping an agent friend out recently. And of course, the listing that her buyer is under contract with is with a limited service company that all they did was put the house in the MLS. The pictures are horrendous. You cannot reach the agent that represents them. We are in negotiations on the home inspection, and there are lots of problems. And guess who is responsible for doing all of that themselves? The seller, because all they did was pay like a flat fee to get into MLS. And this is brutal. The negotiations are not going well because we're dealing with unskilled people who don't do this every day. So they don't know. And so my job is now twice as hard because that person chose not to hire me. And he's also opening himself up to some liabilities. So let's talk about some case studies and some examples. Let me check in with you guys. Are you guys alive? Let me see your faces for a second. I'm just scrolling through. Everybody's got their cameras off this morning, so must have been a bad hair day for everybody. But I just want to make sure you guys are still with me. You're not sleeping. We're all on the same page. Let's talk about some case studies that I think I would use some of them. I'm going to tell you how to use some of this information. So a first-time home buyer who avoided a bad investment due to realtor advice. So again, a first-time home buyer doesn't have a lot of information. They don't know exactly what what to look for, what not to look for. They might have their uncle who comes on every showing, or their dad, because he's been in construction, but he might not necessarily understand if this property is a good investment or not, or whether or not this property is the right fit for this buyer. A seller who faced a long market time and had to reduce the price significantly. Again, they went on overpriced. They've had to keep reducing their price. If they had proper pricing in the beginning, they could have avoided that. I have seen undisclosed property liens. So my very first listing, again, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, I worked for 4 months on a listing in Virginia Beach, Virginia, that I got it under contract. They went through their title search and we discovered about $62,000 worth of liens on the property. I was not skilled enough to know to ask, are there any liens on the property that I need to be made aware of that are going to impact this sale? Had I known about the liens, we would have had a different strategy. We could have negotiated some things differently. I basically worked for 4 months for free because I didn't know any better, and it was my very first listing. So again, I want you to imagine these are some of the things. This list is a list of all the things that could go wrong. And your job is to make sure that you have solutions in place.
It said, sorry to look. She was months in, but she might be more right.
Not sure who that was, but mute yourself if you would for me. These are all things that could go wrong that you should have a solution in place for, or should have the ability to help people avoid. And undisclosed property liens could be a deal killer. I worked for 4 months for free and never got paid because they couldn't afford to pay off the lien and the mortgage, right? And so had I known that in the beginning, I could have given them that information right up front and given them some strategies to pay off the lien first so that then we could sell the property. But I didn't know that there were undisclosed property liens. Losing out in a bidding war, obviously, if you hire a realtor, you're going to get better advice about how to compete in a multiple offer situation, right? You don't have to go it alone. Lowball offers on a for sale by owner home. If you are a for sale by owner, again, the National Association of Realtors says that you get 91% of list price as a for sale by owner. That same statistic for people with an agent is 99%. There's an 8% difference between a represented seller and a for sale by owner on the average of their list price that they receive. So a lot of for sale by owners are trying to avoid paying for agent representation. They're trying to save money. But typically what that means is they actually get less money on their house because they're getting lower offers. Excuse me. A lot of times clients will misunderstand contract terms. They don't know the deadlines that are built into the contract. They don't know how many days they have to get an appraisal. When do they have to get insurance? How many days do they have to deliver the earnest money? What the contract calls for. They also, I've had a lot of clients, even with representation, not understand what the contract says. And it is my responsibility to make sure that they know what paragraph A says, what items are to be left behind in the house. I don't know about you, but have you ever had to go tell a seller you've got to get that stove off the moving truck because it's supposed to be left with the contract? It's supposed to be left with the house. I have, and the stove's in the front of the truck. So I have to wait for them to unload the whole truck to get the stove off because the contract said they were supposed to leave it. That's our responsibility to make sure they know what's supposed to be left behind. So you want to make sure that your clients understand the terms of the contract and they're relying on you to make sure that they do. How many buyers do you have that skip the inspection because they're trying to be competitive? I would not recommend that in most cases. And sometimes you might do it for a new construction and get an inspection right before your warranty expires so that you can get those things corrected through the warranty and allow the house some time to settle. But again, skipping the inspection might have some serious consequences. When a house sits on the market too long, it's overpriced. The house gets stale. We talked about that. Environmental hazards. Do you think that the common buyer or seller knows what kind of environmental hazards need to be disclosed, right? Maybe the house might have been a former meth house. Maybe it's built on a sinkhole. Maybe there's a chemical plant next door. There's a lot of things that, it's our responsibility to help them uncover and help them discover that have serious legal implications if they're not disclosed. Undisclosed ownership complications. These are my favorites. This is where the title company comes in a lot of times, or if you're a really great listing agent, you're going to ask on the front end, does anyone else have any ownership interest in this property that I need to know about? So you would be surprised. I've had a couple sneak up and scare me that from experience, I know better to ask now. But I have had my title company have to go to jail to get signatures from people, or to prisons to get signatures, because there are other owners out there that have an interest ownership right in the property due to marriage or whatever, that maybe not listed on the deed or maybe not listed in the tax record, but it is on the deed. So you just, these are things that common people don't know to look for, right? And I keep saying common people, but what I mean by that is customers without representation. Last minute loan denials happen all the time, but professional realtors are always going to have, if you're smart, a lender in your back pocket that helps save deals that others have denied. You should always have a go-to lender that is maybe can help save deals where loans have been denied in the past. But last minute loan denials do happen frequently. They especially happen when we have a lot of self-employed borrowers that weren't honest on their application. They also happen when overconfident lenders who don't know the guidelines like they should give people pre-approvals when maybe they shouldn't have if they had done their homework or were more skilled and experienced. But last minute loan denials affect everybody. The sellers already have their stuff on a moving truck. They've already packed everything up. Maybe the buyers have already given notice to their apartment and now their loan is denied and they're going to be homeless. There's a lot of things that can happen in a last minute loan denial. What we want to make sure is that we are helping them navigate in a different way so that, you know, that they don't have a last minute loan denial that's going to impact 10 people. Misunderstanding market conditions. I actually had a lender once on a Facebook group write a comment about how angry he was because he wrote an offer and his offer wasn't accepted. And I started to probe a little bit more and ask him a few more questions and say, well, what was the structure of your offer? And he said at the time that he had asked for $15,000 in closing costs. Well, in our market at that time, we were in multiple offer situation. People were throwing crazy money at things well above list price. They were foregoing inspections and not making things contingent, and backing up the appraisal gap with cash, throwing stupid money at houses. And he's asking for $15,000 in closing costs. He was not even close to being competitive in a multiple offer situation in our market with current market conditions. And he wanted to blame the realtor. And at the same time, I'm like, you're a loan officer. You see contracts every day come across your desk. Did anybody else in the last 6 months ask for closing costs? Why are you? That's where the consumers are relying on us to advise them about what's happening in the market and what kinds of things are typical or common or acceptable, or what your opinion is on the successfulness of asking for those concessions. Legal mistakes are very prevalent in our industry. They happen all the time. But one of the things that we can help with is we have errors and omissions insurance that helps protect us against legal mistakes that we might make that are clerical. If you're fraudulent and you're a scammer, forget it. Your E&O is not protecting you. But if you just made a mistake and you left something off the contract or you made some clerical error that has legal ramifications, your errors and omissions insurance is actually there to help support you. The common consumer does not have that. So a buyer going things alone who feels like they're just going to enter into their own contract that they got off of LegalZoom, they don't have that kind of protection if they make some kind of legal mistake. Complex paperwork and disclosures we already talked about. Overlooking the property condition. So buyers are emotionally charged. They get emotional about houses. They love how it's decorated, even though none of those decorations are coming with the house, but that's what entices them to fall in love with it. And of course they want to buy all the furniture. We don't sell we don't sell furniture. We sell real property. And, you know, the thing is that they make emotional decisions and they overlook things that we as professionals don't because we're not emotionally attached to the house. So your clients are going to rely on you to help them not make emotional decisions and to actually not overlook the condition of the property that might warrant asking for some repairs or altering your price that you're offering because it needs more work than you think it does. You just got caught up in the fact that it's beautiful. It has really pretty furniture or they have really nice upgrades, but you know, the gutters are full and the carpets need to be replaced or whatever. That's where they're relying on us to help them dial it back a couple notches, remove the emotion from it, and to think of it rationally and professionally. Appraisal gaps, like again, buyers and consumers don't know what their options are in terms of what happens if this appraisal comes in low. Do they know what to do? How do I negotiate, renegotiate if the appraisal comes in low? What does it mean if I can't get my loan now that the appraisal comes in low? What does it mean for a seller, right? Overpricing also applies to the appraisal, right? Does a seller understand the ramifications? He can price it at that. He might even get a buyer to agree to pay him that. But if it doesn't appraise for that, they will not be able to get a loan for that amount. So he may have to start all over again, and he's wasted time on the market. I pulled a listing yesterday in one of my most favorite neighborhoods in Spring Hill, Tennessee. I've sold about 6 houses in this neighborhood. And of course, I pull a house right next door to where I sold previous house. And they have hired a limited agency. And the pictures were taken from a flip phone from 1982. And this is an $800,000 house. It's horrible. The pictures are terrible. That is not how you market your home, right? And even if you're going to go it alone, spring for the professional photos, right? But no, horrible pictures don't help you. Limited exposure, we talked about. Missing deadlines is a big one. These are legal ramifications that people have, right? Your common client does not know what these deadlines are that are already written into a contract. I actually work with agents that don't know these deadlines. It's just scary to me. I coach agents that I ask, how many days do they have to do the appraisal? I don't know. How many days do they have in order to get home insurance? I don't know. Those are things you have to know. They're in your contract. Your buyer does not know because they don't deal with these contracts every single day, right? But I want to make sure that your clients know missing deadlines actually has real consequences. If you missed a deadline, you're in default of your contract, which means your earnest money is at stake. If you are in default, that seller might get your earnest money. Well, what happens if you were trying to be really competitive in a multiple offer situation and you decide to write your earnest money for $50,000 and then you missed a deadline? That's a lot of money to play with, right? But the consumer is not thinking about that. They don't know. They don't know that their earnest money is in danger because they missed a deadline. So I want you to understand you don't have to worry about deadlines because I know what they are, and my job is to manage the deadlines to make sure you don't miss one. That makes sense? Miscalculating multiple offers. I've had for sale by owners that thought that they could do it themselves because they have bought and sold 10 properties in their lifetime. And so they put their house on the market. They hired a professional photographer. They had an actual title attorney ready. So they thought they were all ready, but they ended up getting multiple offers. And then at this time, multiple offers had escalation clauses in them. And the sellers did not know how to apply the escalation clauses. All of them had escalation. So every single offer they had escalated each other. Which one do we escalate and how much, right? I have experienced agents on my team that I work with every day that still don't know how multiple offers with escalation clauses work because it's complicated. Again, but your common buyer or seller does not know how those work. They don't know which offer to apply the acceleration clause to and which do I have to show proof of the offer, blah, blah, blah. So that can be a problem as well. Non-local lender missed charges. I've had lenders in the past for buyers that wrote pre-approval letters. I can tell that they're not a local lender. And then when it comes time for the good faith estimate, they skipped several charges that are common charges in Tennessee. And because it's not a local lender, they don't know what we collect for in Tennessee, or they didn't do their homework. And so the buyer was unprepared and didn't have enough money to get to closing because the lender did not give appropriate charges. But again, if they had a professional agent, they would have a recommendation of a knowledgeable, savvy, professional lender that could give them the advice that they need. And so that they don't mess up and are not prepared. Zoning restrictions. Again, I have buyers all the time that want to buy raw land and their goal is to build something on it. But they obviously try to buy the land from the seller directly to try to save the money and negotiate. And guess what? The seller's not going to tell the buyer what can and can't be built there. The buyer doesn't know to investigate what the zoning allows. The buyer doesn't know that they have to get the covenants and restrictions to make sure that they can build the type of cabin that they want, that it has to be a minimum of 2,200 square feet, and the driveways have to be aggregate, and it has to have X, Y, or Z. They don't do this every day. They don't know to look for those things. But that I had a client actually purchase property that she planned on building a cabin herself on. She did it without me, right? She bought directly from the seller, and come to find out, she could not build what she wanted to build on that land. So then she wanted to call me to help her sell the land. She wouldn't have bought that land if she had called me to begin with, because I knew what she could build there and what she couldn't. I knew that I could pull the covenants and restrictions and help guide her through that. Let's see. HOA rule violators. So again, not every buyer knows to pull the HOA rules and regulations. Maybe they have a camper. Maybe they have a work truck. Maybe they actually own a dog boarding business. Some of these HOAs are not going to allow any of those things, right? Same thing. I had a client that actually was a dog trainer, and they bought in a neighborhood where you could not have any commercial vehicles at all. And their car was wrapped for their dog training business, and they continued to get HOA violations for parking their work truck on the street. But again, do your clients know that? Does the common consumer know what the HOA rules are? Are there any special assessments? So again, some of these are case studies that I personally have had. A lot of them are, I promise you, I have a story for just about every one of them. I had a client buy a condo, an HOA, in a condo development. There was an $8,000 special assessment planned that nobody told them about, that nobody told the buyer about. But it took one call from the HOA to tell me that there was a special assessment plan when it was approved and when it was going to be imposed, right? But my buyer didn't know to call the HOA to ask about that. They had no idea. The same thing, I sold a house in a neighborhood. My very first listing in Tennessee was in a neighborhood called Mead of Avalon. The HOA transfer fee alone is $1,500. I didn't know that. I came from Virginia and South Carolina where the transfer fees were like $150. This one was $1,500. I thought maybe somebody made a clerical mistake. But had I known that it was $1,500 on the beginning, I would have renegotiated that with the offer, that the seller would pay that, right? Does your buyer know what the transfer fee is and that that's an item that could be negotiated on their behalf, right? If you don't know what the transfer fee is, could that be a surprise to your client and cause a problem? Of course, because they have to pay the transfer fee at closing. That's an extra $1,500 the buyer had to have that was not on their good faith estimate and nobody knew about it. But the seller could have known because they have access to the HOA documents. The agent should have known because they should have had access to the HOA documents, right? They should have inquired with the HOA what the transfer fee was and put that in the MLS. That's a big number to overlook, $1,500. So knowing about special assessments, knowing what the transfer fees are really important. I love the home sale contingency, only because I have had in Tennessee, again, all the things happen in Tennessee, it seems like, but I learned a lot of lessons in Tennessee, I guess I could say. The home sale contingency in Tennessee, I actually represented the buyer. The seller had gone under contract in another state, I think in Virginia or DC or something. And they ended up not writing their offer contingent on the sale of their home because they just assumed it was going to sell in time, and they did not write it with a home sale contingency. My buyers ended up backing out of the contract due to financing because they were denied financing because we could never get verification of employment. Long story. And what ended up happening is the seller on the house that the sellers wrote their offer on ended up suing the sellers. They tried to sue me. They sued the realtors that represented them, but they wrote an offer without a home sale contingency. And a savvy agent would have said, do you have to sell a home in order to buy this? Right? They would have investigated their pre-approval letter to see, do they have a home to sell? Do they have to sell it in order to be able to afford this house? So what happened is, by not disclosing that they had a home sale contingency, they ended up costing that seller hundreds of thousands of dollars, time on the market, and he sued them for damages, and the realtor lost their license. I was not involved in it. He tried to sue me, but again, I'm not responsible for the seller's failure to disclose that they had to sell a home. They were just angry that my buyers backed out of the contract, but they couldn't qualify for financing. There was nothing I could do about that. But a savvy agent would know, do these people have to sell their home in order to qualify for a new home? A savvy agent is going to investigate that with the lender to see if that's a problem or if that's something that needs to be done. And they're going to verify that a home doesn't have to be sold. A common seller or buyer does not know to ask for these things or to find out whether or not this is necessary. Waiving contingencies, again, does, as a for sale by owner, I want you to imagine that you get an offer to purchase a home and the buyer has waived that this this contract is not subject to the appraisal on the property. It's not contingent on the appraisal. But does a savvy for sale by owner know to verify that they have the funds to back up if they don't write it a contingent on the appraisal, and what's going to happen if the appraisal comes in low? These are things that a typical seller or for sale by owner does not know how to do. And then the last one on the case studies is overwhelm. This is a highly stressful process. People do not do it every day. There are a lot of moving parts. A lot of them are packing up one house, moving to another house. They have to keep their house neat and clean for all the showings. They have 6 kids and 4 animals, and you're draping people through their house. They are at the height of their stress level. The lender is asking them for 42 documents that they don't even know where they are. Their money's coming out of every corner, from inspections to appraisals to all kinds of things. And they have to pay their closing costs. It's a lot to manage. We as professionals help them navigate the stress of those things. We help them avoid pitfalls and stressful situations. We're also there to calm them down, to keep them focused on the bigger picture, to alleviate some stress from them. But I want you to think about how stressful this is going alone, right? Of course, you're better off with my help than you are without it. My job is to help keep you calm, to keep focused on things that matter, to help you navigate the process so you're not overwhelmed and stressed. But I just had a client terminate a contract that was supposed to close tomorrow because they were stressed, overstressed, and overwhelmed. And we are going to continue to have clients that are overwhelmed the more they try to do things themselves. They're relying on us to take that stress off of their plate. They're relying on us to help them navigate one of the most stressful things they've ever been through, and they don't know because they don't do it every day. Our job is to help calm them down and advise them what to do. So there are some ways that you can end, and I'm almost done with y'all. Thank you so much for hanging in with me. It's a lot to cover, but it's a lot of information. There are some ways that you can educate the consumer. And in my opinion, we have an obligation to educate consumers about why they need us. They don't know why they need us. They just know we cost money. And then now, since the lawsuit, they think we cost more money. We don't cost more money now. Some places we cost less. Some people are already making those kinds of adjustments, but they need to know why they need a realtor. Why is it so important that you have representation? What could go wrong if you don't? Right? So I would do a video series breaking down the home buying process step by step. I would probably do more of a series that's like, do you know? Do you know what the contract says? Do you know what the dates are that you're obligated by? Do you know what laws the state of Tennessee requires of sellers, like what you're supposed to be responsible for disclosing? Do you know what to do if the appraisal comes in low? Do you know which repairs you should fix? I would do a do you know series because the answer is no. When you start listing all the things, do you know? The answer is no, because they've not sold 50 houses. They don't know all these things. This is why you need a realtor. This is why you need me. Do you know how to price your house properly? Zillow is not it. That is not a proper reflection of price, right? Do you know how to navigate? Do you know how to market your house to get people through the front door? Do you know how to prepare your home for sale? There's a lot of things they don't know how to do. That's what they hire me for, right? A first-time homebuyer workshop explaining the importance of using a realtor. Again, I would do a series about why do you need a realtor? I am going to do way more than just open the door. We've got to break the myth and dispel the myth that that's all they need us for. You cannot only be a door opener, folks. You've got to be a good negotiator. You've got to be a strategist. You've got to be a consultant. You have to be a therapist, for God's sake. You've got to be all the things, but you are an integral part of this process. You are needed. And at the end of the day, if you're not feeling like, if you don't recognize for yourself that your clients are better off with you than without you, you're already losing the battle. You can't properly defend your position in this process if you don't understand why you're needed yourself. What could go wrong if I'm not involved? That's why I tried to give you as many examples of case studies today so that you can see what all could go wrong. Because that's the part that we need to focus on with them. What could happen if you don't hire me? Because I have the solutions for those things. I have the knowledge. I have the experience. I see it every day. You have never done this. You've never sold a house before, right? Do you know what to expect? I would definitely encourage you to highlight stories of successful transactions or how you helped people avoid problems. How did you help a buyer avoid a mistake? What kinds of mistakes have buyers made in your past that you helped them avoid? What kind of things? Most of my stories I gave you today were learning lessons, right? I've learned all the mistakes that you don't have to, right? But my point is like, I want you to highlight stories and tell stories of ways that you helped people get to where they're going. What role did you play in this process? Could they have done it without you? Yes. Should they? No. Why? I hope that makes sense to you guys. And then I've given you a little gift here at the end, which is I've given you a template that you can drop into Canva that are 30 things that you could do wrong, that could go wrong, that you can pop your face on, your logo on. And it basically are 30 things that could happen in a real estate transaction that with your help, you can help people avoid, like incorrect pricing, poor marketing, limiting exposure, contract errors, appraisal issues, lowball offers, failure to properly screen people so that you don't have people that don't qualify. So I've given you guys the link to that template. You have access to it. You can make it your own, pop in your own picture, pop in your own logo. I'm going to give you guys the link one more time in case anybody came in late and didn't get it. That's all I have for you today. Anybody have any questions or comments or want to talk about anything that I presented?
I have one question.
Sure, go ahead.
I don't know. I don't know how Zillow prices them, and I can't ever, like, I've asked other people, and it seems like no one really knows where the price really comes from. So I was hoping maybe if someone knew, then when I do explain that to my clients are like, well, where does that even come from? And I think, well, I don't know, but it's wrong.
Yeah, let me explain it to you. That's a very good question. Actually, I'm glad you asked that. Thank you. So computerized models, we call them RVMs or AVMs, and Zillow calls theirs a Zestimate, right? But if you've ever been on Realtor RPR, you have access to it for free through the National Association of Realtors. If you've not ever been on there, I'm going to encourage you to go on there. There's actually a page in there. If you do like a mini report and you go on customize, there's a page that says how we price properties, right? And it will actually explain the computerized model, whether it's Zillow or Redfin or RPR or even our own website and Lofty or whatever it is. There's a lot of what it does was it will take the tax like assessment. So it will scour the county records, what they have for the county, like the details, how many beds, baths, and square footage. And it will take the county assessment, and then it will take just a random geographical location or close to that subject property, and it will just take an average of all the houses around it. Well, I want you to imagine, Amber, I don't know what part of town you live in. Where do you live? Like, what state are you in?
So I'm in Tennessee. I'm in Bristol, and so I'm
Bristol.
like Bristol, Tennessee, and Virginia. So I kind
Okay.
of do both of them.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. So, for example, like in downtown Nashville in the urban core, you might have a $900,000 house next to a $250,000 house that's been there since 1960, right? And so if you're taking a geographic circle and you're just taking an average of the houses around, that is not an accurate reflection of market price, right? It's going to take averages of data that they have available to them through cities and counties, and it's going to also take tax record data of other homes that have sold in that geographic location, but that does not mean that the homes are similar at all. It just means that they are taking in certain properties. Now, some of the more sophisticated modules will actually have parameters, so it'll say plus or minus 1,000 square feet, but that's also too big of a gap for us. When we are pricing properties, I don't go more than 300 square feet, right? So if something's taking 1,000 square feet, is it even a true comp? Because my appraiser's not going to use something that's 1,000 square feet bigger or smaller. It's also not going to use a house that was 10 or 15 years older or newer, right? They like to stay within plus or minus 5 years, and they like to stay plus or minus 300 square feet if possible. And they want the same subdivision if possible. It might even be the same section of that subdivision. But these computerized modules do not take into account property condition. Are the floors covered in cat pee? Does it need to be painted? Is the trim all rotted? Are the gutters full? The HVAC is original. Your computerized modules don't know anything about the condition of the property. And that's where we come into play to properly price a home based on the condition of the property and based on what we know. Is this a true good comparable to the subject property or not? Because we're the ones familiar with all the other properties. This is why you have to be a local expert as well to know what houses in the perfect condition sell for and how you adjust the price down when yours is not perfect condition. Those computerized modules can't do that. They cannot replace the knowledge of a local realtor. So I think the best way for you, Amber, to explain it to people is it is an average of data that they have access to from tax records, from previous sales, from sales around it, but they may not be similar properties at all that they're taking into account. Does that make sense?
It
Great
does.
question.
And so basically, is their data just forever? Like whatever data they have for forever? Like it could be from this year or last year or 25 years ago when
Yes.
somebody bought their land that wasn't even a house for $10,000,
Correct.
and that's going to get assessed into it.
You got it. And then the same thing is if a seller makes renovations to their house, let's say they finish off attic space or they add on an addition or whatever that is, or they tear down a wall. Again, your tax records, if they didn't pull permits or they haven't been reassessed, you don't have access to that information that the square footage is actually 3,000 versus 2,100. The Zestimate or whatever, the automated valuation is only looking at 2,100, right? That's where we come in. We know that they have 3,000. You can't rely on a computerized module to tell you that, right? Good question. Anybody else? No, you guys are just so ready to take on the world and tell the world why you need a realtor. Does everybody understand what I was saying about not giving all your secrets away? Is there a way that you can promote your value without giving them the answers, without making you replaceable? So for example, I want them to know what could go wrong, but I'm not going to tell them how to avoid it because that's what I want them to hire me for. Does that make sense? I don't want to tell you my secrets to how to avoid these problems. I want to tell you, hey, these are the problems that could happen. You need to hire me so that they don't, because I have the solution. That's how I want you to promote yourself. But I also want to make sure that you are doing a good job of making sure you tell people, hold on one second, guys. I see your chat and I'm going to answer your question in just a second. What I want to make sure you guys are doing is we have got to, as an industry, fight for ourselves, insert our value, and make sure people know why they need us. Right now, the news is not helping that. The news is not doing that for you. The news is focused on how much you cost, not the value you bring to the table. Debbie is very good at making sure that her clients know what her value is. She is very good at explaining what her value proposition, because we've practiced that. She's confident in that. She knows what she brings to the table. You guys have got to make sure you do the same thing. Does your client know your value and your work? Do they know what all you're going to do for them? You've got to make sure that they know you do more than open the door. You've got to make sure that they know that you do more than put the sign in the yard and put it in the MLS. You have a plan, and you have a marketing plan that is effective and it works, right? You have experience. You have people in your corner that have seen that list of case studies that I gave you, the 23 things or 28, whatever many were on that list. Those are lessons I learned the hard way over 25 years. It took me thousands of houses to learn those lessons. Do you think your seller learned all those in one sale just because they've sold a house before? No, that's why they need me. You guys mentioned that the first 3 steps of the template are cut off. I will make sure that that is fixed. The link will still be the same. Let me check real quick. Mine is not cut off, so I'm not sure who said that and if it's been fixed or if it's just, but the first 3 things on my template look normal. So is that something I need to address, or are you guys good? Okay. Holly said hers are good. I trust Holly with my life. If somebody else's is cut off, let me know, but I'll get you a new one. But I would encourage you to make a copy of that and make it your own. And see if I would challenge you guys too to start doing a campaign, to make sure that you're letting people know why people need you. Why do you need an agent? I would encourage you to do a video series or a 7-day series on your social media that says, here's 25 reasons you need a realtor, broken up in 3 parts, or 5 things that could go wrong. But use this. That was the other thing I was going to tell you, the template that I gave you. Anybody have any suggestions before I give you mine about how you'll use this template? Do I want you just to post the template on your social media? No. I want you to use it as a lead magnet, okay? A lead magnet is something that you use in exchange for someone's information. So what you're going to say is, I've got a list of 30 things that could go wrong in a real estate transaction. Do you want a copy? Or you give an example, you tell a story of just one thing that could go wrong without an agent's help, and say, want to know more? I've got a list of other things that could go wrong. Do you want a copy? Right? You can use this as a lead magnet to educate people, but also gather people's information. Obviously, if they're interested in your guide of what could go wrong, they're probably interested in purchasing or selling a house, and they're not sure that they need a realtor for it, right? They're trying to learn how to avoid to do it without an agent. So those are the people that are kind of raising their hand that they have an interest in real estate, but you're going to find out more about what they want to do. But don't just post this. You can, but that's not the best use of it. Don't just post it on your social media. Use it as a lead magnet. Okay. Definitely send to your database as well. Past clients still look to you for education. Yes. And then the other thing is that because people have bought a house before, sometimes they think, well, I don't need to hire an agent because I bought a house before. I know what to expect. But remember, every transaction is different, right? I had to sell thousands of homes to learn those lessons that I told you guys about today. So just because you bought one house does not make you a skilled person enough to avoid needing a realtor. So I want you to do your part to educate the public about why they need it. I want you to do your part of making sure that you are painting yourself as the person who can help them avoid problems. Okay? That is all I have for you today. I'm super grateful you came and joined me today. Join me next week, same bat time, same bat channel. I will post a new link every week for you guys, but next week, I forgot what we're talking about next week, but you'll see it if you follow me on Facebook. You'll see it on my personal page as well. But We do this this session every single Thursday at this time. And if you can't make it in person, you can't come live, they're always recorded. You can find all the recordings on my YouTube channel. You just search RE Coach Crate on YouTube and you can find them there. You guys look out for my podcast as well. I've got new episodes dropping every Friday. So you'll see a new one coming out tomorrow. If you're out walking your dog, stick them in and get a listen. But I can haunt you in your dreams and you can hear my voice all the time on my podcast as well. I appreciate you guys showing up and taking the time to make yourselves better agents. I think together we've got a big job ahead of us of making sure people understand what we do and that they still need us. But I think we've got a good foot on being able to really make sure that they understand what role we play in this and that they do need us and they are better off with our help than they are without it. Okay. So keep that in mind. Have a great day. Super happy to see your faces. Debbie, I'm so happy to see your face. I've missed you. And you guys go make it a great day. And I'm here if you guys ever need anything. Take care.